The most important first step is to find out where the gap is. What is the thing you're missing? What is the thing you want to feel more often? Then, oftentimes, just because you have that Velcro, the answer is going to come and you're going to notice it. Again, in a conversation around you or in a book that you happen to pick up because someone recommended it just at the right time. The right time came because you were intentional about asking the question about bettering your life. Hello, it's your friend Lizzy, and welcome to another episode of Lean In With Lizzy. I am solo here today with an episode that, as you know, I'm going to say next, fires me up. I am so excited to share some tips that I have for you to level up your life. I want you to know as we start this episode that you are allowed to want more for your life. This doesn't mean living in a state of frustration or discouragement, but I want to give you permission as you listen to this episode today to say it's okay if I'm not satisfied with where I am. It's okay if I want more and if I want better. And I'm going to walk you through some tips on how to level up. So story time to start. I remember a point in my life, I had just recently been married. We moved out to the New York City suburbs. I was going to law school at Fordham University. And I was somehow awakened to noticing women that I admired in a new way. I think I had paid attention to this probably before, but I think I was really just focused more on myself, that I didn't have this awareness of incredible women. And it seemed like maybe now because I was now a wife and was preparing to become a mother and was thinking about who I would be as an attorney, that I started noticing the women around me who really stuck out, who could be that they were great at friendship or were really articulate or had healthy coping strategies for processing tricky things. There were women that I noticed that just lit up a room. They knew how to work a room, but in a really genuine way and made everyone feel seen and loved. Women who were really measured in their responses. And I feel like I'd get a text back or an email and be like, they just said that so perfectly. Or women who knew how to make you feel like their best friend, but didn't overshare every detail about their life. Like there were just these little things that I looked at and saw. And the magic in it was, it didn't feel overwhelming. It sparked this hope in me. I started seeing these women and I had this realization, if they could be like that, why couldn't I? And what started, I think, as a subconscious experience of noticing these women and thinking through what was different from them than me, then became this conscious experiment. Like, could I get good at that thing? And is that actually teachable? Is the art of friendship just an art that if I haven't seen or if I'm just not good at inherently, could I be good at if I practiced it? And what are the skills and traits in our life that actually can be taught and learned and repeated until they're natural to us too? It was magic, and it opened a part of my life. Actually, it opened my whole life to better ways of doing things, better ways of being, better ways of thinking. And I will say at this point, I'm not there. I don't say that I'm now this woman that has accomplished all those things internally, not the taskless things, but I haven't become that. But I've learned some hacks along the way with years of practice in between and hundreds of books that I'm going to try to unpack in just a brief way in the time that we have together today. I think every week I see something still in a human that I know and love and think, I wonder if I could get good at that. And every week as well, I see things in myself that I think, I got to fix that. I don't want to be that human. Now, I want to be thoughtful as we jump into this discussion that I'm not talking here about looking at myself and looking at others and thinking, I want all the same personality and gifts and talents and skills. Because I really value the fact that I'm different and that they're different. And I've talked about this in multiple episodes. One of my very first episodes, I think one of the magic parts of womanhood is when we really understand that I'm not supposed to be like everybody else. I'm not supposed to act like them, have the interests they have, or touch the world in the way that they do, because that's the power of a network. When we lean on each other, we change the world. We don't do it alone. We're not supposed to have everything in every one of us. So that's not the kind of thing I'm talking about. What I am talking about, that in my unique way, I'm going to change the world, and your unique way, you're going to change the world. But there's ways that we can refine our versions of our best self so that we're more effective, so that we're more authentic, so that we touch more people in a better way and touch the people that we are meant to touch uniquely. So that's where we're headed today. I have 5 tips for you. The 5th one is a bonus tip that is super vulnerable, and I'm going to go there because I feel like it hopefully will be helpful for enough people that it's worth it. I also have a download that I'm going to be sharing at the end of this episode that I'm super excited about. So tip number 1 is to compare without despair. All of us have heard the phrase, comparison is the thief of joy. That's not true. Comparison with fear is the thief of joy. Here's what I mean. If you are comparing yourself, your car, your home, your family to someone else's, comparison is actually a very helpful thing to do. How does this person have peace in their family? How does that person keep their car clean? I mean, everything we do in life, if we want to be raised to a state that's better than the current state we're in, comparison may be the most helpful thing because we see a better way. We realize that more is possible. Unless you add the fear in. If you take the comparison, me versus a woman next to me, and say, she's more this, she has that, she does this better, and then add an element of fear in, that is the thief of joy. That then says, because I'm not that, maybe I'll never have deep friendships like she does. Because I don't do things in the way she does, maybe people won't accept me. Maybe my inherent worth is not enough. Your worth is what it is, regardless of what you do, regardless of choices you make. Then you take comparison and say, now how can I live better and happier? That for me is a huge key. And so I want you to start comparing. No one else is going to say that on another podcast. I want you to start comparing your life to the lives of women that you love and admire and respect. And think about it. What is it that you respect? What is it that maybe even triggers a little bit of jealousy? Jealousy is a really good messenger that there may be something about their life that could be right for you. Now, maybe not. Maybe you just won't be that person. I can think of many women who I've had, even on this podcast, who my gifts and talents are never going to look like their gifts and talents. And so if I'm comparing exactly to that, I'm going to start feeling that fear because I'm just not going to have those gifts and talents. That's not who I was created to be. And if I leaned into their gifts and talents, I'm going to miss out on the ones that I'm already really strong at. But I want you to start thinking, how do they live their life? What do their habits look like? How do they treat other people? How do they show up? What are the things that make them someone that has caught your attention, that makes you admire them, that makes you want to be like them? And start taking note. Start just noticing, what are those things? Maybe jot them down. Maybe take some time and think through specifically what it is that it's triggering in you and what you want to improve and get better in your own life. Make this inventory honest. Make this inventory fearless. Make it shameless. Don't add shame or fear into the equation, but be really honest with yourself in all the ways. What are the things that I would want if I'm looking at my ideal life, this ideal version of who Lizzy Jensen is or who you are, and its most beautiful, refined, polished form? What does that look like? And know that I have the agency to do a lot of that creating myself. So to tip number 1, compare without despair. I'm encouraging you to compare yourself to the women you admire and come up with this picture that maybe is a little hazy at first. If you've never thought of the most beautiful, wonderful, talented, polished version of you, it might not be very clear. You might have that camera and the lens is still pretty blurry. Get it a little clearer and do this again and get it a little clearer until you start seeing, these are my talents, these are my interests, this is what I'm good at. This is what I want to refine and become. Second, once you're getting that clear picture into view, I want you to protect your lane. I think this tip may be one of the most impactful tips for me in this last year, is once I've realized who I am, I've been able to start to shed the need to please, the need to say yes, the need to show up for everyone at all times, because I know that if I show up for everybody else always, I'm not going to show up for the things that I'm meant to show up for. And that matters because there is one you and you have a work to do. And chances are, if you're someone who's trying to do good in the world and you've started to refine yourself, more opportunities are going to come your way because you're capable. So people are going to look to you and ask you to do things for them. And just because you're asked to do it doesn't mean that you have to or should do it. My favorite word to protect my lane is the word no. In one of my favorite books, Greg McKeown's Essentialism, he says, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. If it doesn't light you up, if you don't know inside that this is something powerful for you or for the world, no is an appropriate and wonderful word for you to use. There's a verse in scripture that says that when we give a gift grudgingly, it does no good to our soul. And I've thought of this verse so many times because too often as women, we feel like because someone's asked us, because someone's in need, that means we have to show up. And then we show up stressed, we show up like a martyr, we show up frustrated, and that just doesn't do us any good. It may on the margin help the people who are there to help, but it's not going to do our souls any good. I invite you to practice saying no more frequently. I invite you to stop when someone asks for your time, when someone asks for your expertise, and ask if it's right for you to best serve the world if you do it through this invitation or this ask. If you can't come in with a strong yes, then say no. Practice the art and the magic of the word no. I think we're really good as women at being martyrs. And what a martyr really means is someone has asked something of you that's better for the good of mankind. The problem is, if it's not really for the good of mankind, you're just playing the martyr. You're not actually even being a martyr. You're showing up and saying, I have to give these things or the world will be worse off. Sometimes it won't be. Sometimes you're the lowest hanging fruit and the first person someone thought of, and so they just called you. Have the courage, have the confidence to have the power within you to just say no. The beautiful thing about when you say no is that then you're going to show up with a different energy to the things you say yes to. If you've said no to the things that don't count and don't matter, when you do show up to the things that you know do count and do matter, you're going to show up with your whole heart. You're going to be the loudest cheerleader. You're going to be the biggest supporter, the best friend. You're going to enjoy the thing that you went to do socially because you intentionally chose it. So that's my tip number 2. Protect your lane. Advocate for yourself without apology, without hesitation. Your magic word is no. Resist the martyrdom. Give yourself joyfully and sincerely to the things that you've chosen. Number 3, again, so we're thinking about, okay, who is this ideal version of me that's going to take time and years and practice and noticing the things that I'm not good at and then comparing without despair to these women who I admire and hope to be like. The third thing that I would suggest is check your habits. Now, you may hear that and say, oh, I know exactly where she's going with this section. She's going to tell me that habits are the things that I do. I need to be the 5:30 or the 5 a.m. warrior. I need to make sure I drink those 1,000 liters of water a day. Whatever it is that you've heard that these are the habits of health and I need to show up in this way all the time. I'm going to shift this a little bit. I think there's another set of habits that matters most that we need to think more about as women. And these are the habits of the mind. I guess I should stop and also say I'm obsessive about my habits. I believe in the other kind of habits. As women, we have so many decisions that we make every day, and there's a mental load and a mental fatigue that just comes from making decisions. Habits, those physical habits, the ones I referred to, just cut through that noise. And I'm, again, obsessive about them. They've helped me in my health. They've helped me in my relationships. But I want to think about a different set of habits in the mental habits because I don't think we talk about these, and I think they might matter even more than those physical habits. Here's what I mean. I want you to do a mental habit inventory and think about what are the thoughts you think habitually and regularly. So this could look like, what are the habits that I always think about when I wake up? What are the habits and where does my mind just naturally go when I'm not being intentional and thinking about it? When I have free time and my mind is just wandering, what are the general thought waves? Are they negative? Are they in the martyr state? Are they thinking about physical pain that your body is always in? Are they thinking about how someone has wronged you and why you're a victim? Or are they the flip side? Are they the positive side of that? Do you think about how good your day is going? Are you thinking about who is the next person that you could cheer up or serve or lighten their load? Are you thinking about, and shocker here, women, if there's any of you who are consistently in this habit, are you thinking about how much you love yourself? Are you thinking about how proud you are of yourself? What is that inner voice habitually saying that you've allowed it to say, m- likely unknowingly? Because often we aren't as intentional about thinking through, again, those mental loops and mental habits as we are about, well, I know that about 3 p.m. every day, I go stop and get a Diet Coke and a cookie if you live in Utah, or whatever those other things are that maybe I want to cut out of my life, or I'd like to wake up earlier. Start paying attention to the things that are going into your mind. Is it even persistent anger? I want to share a personal breakthrough story. Um, Also super vulnerable, but one that I feel like is so common to so many women. And that's just struggles with body image, struggles with how I look. I'm 5'9", which is not super tall, but felt really tall all through middle school and high school. And I'm an athlete. I had a grandpa who went to the Olympic trials, like didn't have a body that was thin and willowy. And, we all are in our heads about something. That's been my thing for a long time. And I started noticing, I'm not even sure what triggered it, that when I woke up in the morning, without fail, the thought in my mind was, how much did I eat yesterday? And do I deserve to eat breakfast? I know. Sad, super sad. And I don't know how many years this had been on my mind, but it was a long time. And at first I was just aware. Again, there was no shame. There was no judgment. I just started noticing, like, that's really fascinating that that's the first thought that comes into my mind, literally as I'm coming out of subconsciousness from sleep state to awake state. And about that time, I was reading in scripture this awesome verse that says something to the extent, when thou risest in the morning, rise with thanks. It's like, what? I want to see if that could shift my mental pattern and then see what impact that would have on these other obsessive thoughts where I focus too much on my body and my physical appearance. And so it's a really interesting thing to try to control your subconscious thoughts as you're coming out of sleep. I actually had more capacity to do it than I thought I would. I thought, well, most of those thoughts are subconscious, so I'll probably go through a few rounds of it before I realize what I'm doing. Within a few days, I could have an intentional first thought as I was coming out of subconsciousness. And I just would rapid fire, what are all the things I'm grateful for right now in this moment that's ahead of me today, that was behind me yesterday? And it's easy to do. We all have so much to be grateful for if we really focus on that thing. And it changed me. It changed my thoughts. And not that it made my issues with my body. There's a lot more work that I've had to do and I'm still doing to work through that. But what was fascinating is that I had not even been aware how much I had set myself up for failure there. I just didn't even notice it. It was just the habit loop in my mind that every day I wake up, I beat myself up for whatever happened yesterday, and then I go on and that's the start to my day. Of course, I'm setting myself up for failure in eating well and treating my body well and being grateful for all the things this body does for me. I've had 5 kids. I've carried twins. I've been able to sit in a hospital bed with the mental exertion of not leaving that room. I mean, I could go on, and you could go on of the things that our bodies do. Yet my habit loop, without thinking about it, was, man, I don't deserve to eat if I really made bad choices yesterday. So that's my vulnerable example. I want you to think about an example of your life. Again, when you compare without despair into the type of woman you hope to be, whatever that looks like, what are the habit loops of your mind that aren't going to get you there? I love the phrase that show me your habits and I'll show you the kind of woman you're going to become. Never is that more true than the habits of the mind. So take that challenge. Maybe it's inventory. Maybe you write it out. My guess is, even if you don't write everything down, just the simple awareness practice will open your mind to what's really happening. It's going to open your eyes to what's really going on inside that brain. So that's tip number 3. Habits of the mind matter most. Tip number 4 is one of the newest things I've been practicing over the past few months that is changing my life. I started noticing women, again, this comparing without despair, women around me who were unflappable, who something would happen in their life, whether their kids or work or things that were happening in the world, and you just kind of couldn't shake them. They just had this ease and confidence about them that was different. And I came upon a book that has been recommended to me so many times called The Untethered Soul. I hope I got that right. It's super popular, New York Times bestseller, whatever, 6 million copies or probably way more sold. And I've been reading that book. I'm actually not through it. I'm digesting it so slowly, and it's been so powerful for me. But the takeaway that I've come away with is that each of us have a mental model of how the world should be. And living in a transcendent state is leaving that mental model behind. Now, go read the book. You'll get the full scope of why this is powerful and how to do it. But what the phrase that came to me is, I want to live unbothered. I just want to be unbothered. When something happens, fine. We have a good friend who actually has an awesome podcast. Shout out to our neighbor and my husband's business partner, Casey Baugh, who often says, and I think he maybe even got this from Tony Robbins, but that life is happening for me. Life is not happening to me. Life is happening for me. And so I invite you to try to live with the firm belief that life is happening for you. You are not the victim of your life, that everything that happens to you is an opportunity for something better to come. And this concept of being unbothered, a couple nights ago, was driven home to me again. I was home. We had some stuff with our kids. I had an expectation and mental model of what was going to happen that night because we had planned for it and we knew what was going to happen, right? And then things didn't go to plan. And let's just be clear, like, I have a husband, I have 5 kids, and I have a dog. For me to have an expectation that things will go as planned is a little bit ridiculous. For all of humankind to hold on to this expectation that we should have, that we're entitled to have an expectation of how life goes for us, is kind of a funny thing that we don't really question. But we do. We have an assumption that our marriages are going to work out. We have an assumption that the day is going to go just how we wanted. We have an assumption and an entitlement that the lights are going to be green. Well, what about the people sitting at the other end of the light who also want that light to be green for them and for everything to go their way as well? It's just not realistic. It's just not healthy. And it leads to a life of a lot of bother. I think there's a lot of us who walk around in this bothered state. And most of our conversations with the people we're around are all about how bothered we were because my car broke down and then this happened and that happened. If you can start to notice what's bothering you, if you can start noticing the mental model that that thing broke, in this book, it talks about those are the things that break your mental model for good. When you start living without the mental models and you fully accept that here is the best plan for my day, for my life, for my hopes, for my dreams, and I trust that life is happening for me. So when something else happens, I'm totally unbothered. An example of this happened this morning. Got a text, the guest that I was going to have on today canceled. And I was like, I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered at all. She's an awesome human being. She has a child who got sick. And you know what the text back was? I'm so glad you're such a good mom. Your son is so lucky to have you. I'm just unbothered. I'm sure there's something that I didn't tell her this. Then in my mind, I'm thinking, should I cancel? Who do we have in the hopper? We're running low on episodes. I have stuff I can teach. I have so much stuff I'm passionate about. This will give me a chance to push myself for 30 minutes and prepare an episode. Had I had an attitude of being bothered, though, I don't think anything would have come. I think that energy of being bothered blocks us and stops us from then leaning into the life that is happening for us. Because we're in an energy of being bothered. So we're not ready to accept the great things. They're not going to attach themselves to us. They're not going to seek us out. But when we have an attitude that life is happening for me, we will recognize the things that are coming that are good. We'll recognize that the interruptions were the best parts of our day, whether it's with kids or someone in a grocery store that we get to talk to. That's the magic of life. But you will not find that magic. I never find that magic when I spend my energy in being bothered. So that was my night a few nights ago. And I sat there and my daughter changed her plan because of things that happened. And then my husband changed his plan and came into bed a lot later than I was planning on. He was planning on. It was definitely me. I was planning on. And I was laying in bed and I was like, man, I could be so bothered now. And then this was the phrase, but what if I'm not? What if I just move? I pivot. I'm driving in one lane and I just take the turn with the turn life has given me. This is still a great night. Look at all the great things that happened. Life is happening for me, and I just don't have enough energy to waste being bothered. That's your tip number 4. Tip number 5 is my bonus tip. And the bonus tip is ChatGPT is your secret weapon. And I'm going to give you an example of how this has happened in my life. So a lot of times we have things, if you're comparing without despair, you're taking a hard inventory at your life, who you want to be, you're looking at the mental habits of your mind, you're noticing all the times you're bothered. And then you usually come to this point of despair where it's like, I'm a lot worse than I thought I was. I thought I was doing so well. And turns out I get bothered a lot. I hold grudges. I get way more angry than I ever thought I did. Like, your eyes are open to the fact that maybe you're not as patient and loving, and maybe you're not always the hero in the story, and maybe you weren't always the one who was right. And then you get to this point where maybe you have a list of things that you realize you want to work on. Enter ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a logical thinking tool that has all the best mental models, practices, writing skills. I mean, you name it. If it's out there and you could hire someone to help you to do it, ChatGPT can help you do it and help you with your mind and help you with your mental models. I had an experience. This is probably 6 months ago now, and I am obsessed with ChatGPT. I use it all the time. It is a bit of an executive assistant to me in writing and thinking, in brainstorming and thinking through things. And I had this darling girl, one of my favorite girls I got to mentor at church when she was in high school. And she reached out to me and she was coming. Shout out to McKinley, actually. I love you, McKinley, if you're listening to this. She was coming out to Utah for a baby shower, invited me to come. And so sadly, I was actually going to the town where she is from for something. And so we were like swapping places that weekend. And I felt so badly and sad inside because I haven't seen her in forever. And she is going to be the best mom. And I was just like, what a bummer that I don't get this chance to see her and just like show up for her, right? And so she sent me that. And then as I went to send her a text back, I had one of these aha moments of like, why, when I communicate sorry to people, is it so awkward? And I over apologize. And it was like, I'm so sorry. And it almost sounded like I was going so far overboard that I was being fake. And I was actually in my heart feeling sincere about this. I'm going to pull out my phone right now and actually pull up this ChatGPT text that I started at this moment that now I've probably had 1,000 texts or emails or messages like this. I realized that the women that I love and admire, they know how to phrase things in a warm way while holding boundaries, while not apologizing for the fact that they have a life, that they have things they need to do. And they wrote it in a way that I didn't feel capable of writing it. So here's where I'm going to get super vulnerable and maybe I'll be made fun of, but I never wrote this with the intention to read it. This is what I wrote because I thought, you know what? If I can tell ChatGPT the thing that I want it to help me say and the tone in which I want to say it, I wonder if it could help me craft a text message that sounds the way I want to. So I can communicate the tone, the content, and the love in the way I want to. So this was my message. I'm writing a message to a former young woman of mine back in the day. I've already told ChatGPT I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like, I give it all this context to know, right? She's having her first baby. She's amazing, and I won't be able to make her baby shower, which makes me so sad. And she lives out of state, so I won't get to see her after. Edit a message. And then I gave it the message that I was going to send. And then here's the vulnerable part. I said, but before you write it, I want to tell you who I want to be. I want to tell you the tone and the language and the wording. And really, what I was doing with ChatGPT is I was painting this picture of who I hope to become and how I want to sound, and thinking back to those Fordham days when I was noticing all these beautiful women in my church congregations and on the train and at school and my professors, and thinking, that's the kind of woman I want to be. But ChatGPT can coach me how to do this. And I painted that picture. So then I said this, I want my tone. So I said, I'm going to make this new chat a place where I have you help me with any messages, text messages, emails, things to say to people that I don't quite know how to word yet. I want my tone to be articulate, warm, happy, delightful, and humorous. I want to start acting and sounding like a modern queen. Always generous, always giving the benefit of the doubt, never condescending, never acting too good, generous, warm, with a twinkle in my eye. And then I said, do these instructions make sense for the tone? And I will keep coming back to this same thread. And so it's interesting, and some people could say, well, those aren't your words, but presidents have speechwriters, right? Like, there are things that so many people use to sound and to look and to say the things they want to say. And so I have used this thread to work through text messages that are hard when I have to turn something down. I've used this when there's tricky situations. I mean, there are, again, thousands of examples that I will not read in this text, in this chain with ChatGPT, that it now knows this is who I am. This is how I want to sound. And now there are so many other ways that you can use ChatGPT that just have nothing to do, right, with, maybe you're an exceptional writer. I have so many women in my life where I'm like, they are just so good at this. But it may be, I want to show up for this friend. And then you tell ChatGPT the situation and you say, it's a little bit sticky and tricky because of X, Y, and Z circumstances. Give me 10 ways that I could show up to this friend, for this friend, that I may not have thought about before. Use it as a brainstorming partner to have the best you show up in whatever way you feel like is just not natural for you yet. There's a Clayton Christensen quote that my co-director at the school, Matt Clayton, shared with me that I'm obsessed with. And I didn't even have time to totally look it up because I was just unbothered this morning and needed to put together this episode. But it's something to the extent of, and I think I've even shared this maybe on another podcast because I love it so much. Questions are the Velcro that your answers will stick to. ChatGPT is only good if you actually give it the question that's Velcro for a great answer to stick to. What's interesting about ChatGPT for me is that actually, I think the practice of going to ChatGPT is really, really important. And I think, and don't hate me for this comparison, I think it's a training tool that is even helpful as we think about our relationship with God and prayer. I think half the battle of prayer and the whole battle with ChatGPT is that too often we never ask a good question because we don't actually know what we want. We go to God and we say, I want a better life. I want to be happy. We ask really general questions. And so God gives us really general answers because that's the only Velcro we have and we wouldn't recognize anything else. But what if we got really specific in our prayers with God and we told him all the things that we've already done to have that life or to fix that relationship or to show up better? And then we say, I'm not sure how to proceed from this point. Can you open my eyes to a better way? Can you fill my life and my heart with more light and more recognition and more discernment to what's really happening? And can you show me the things that I'm missing? ChatGPT has actually helped me, and you'd think this was sponsored. Wouldn't that be cool if I had a sponsored podcast from ChatGPT? I'm not actually currently taking sponsors in case ChatGPT wants to reach out. But what's fascinating is it's helped me pray better. It's helped me refine what I really want in my own life because it only gives an answer as good as the question that I asked it. Now, God is a loving God and he gives us more than even the things we ask, and it's all out there. But when you think about how many answers God is giving us always, the answers are all around us. To any question you have in your mind, the answer's there. It's in the people talking around you. It's in what someone's saying at church. It's in an article that happens to pop up because Instagram was listening to you and they feed you the thing that it knows you need that you don't even know that you need yet. Not that you need everything Instagram feeds to you, obviously. But what if that practice was something that you took on intentionally? Again, going back to our tip number 1 and 2 and 3 in my experience at Fordham. What if you got really clear and really intentional about what you want in your life? What are the feelings and thoughts and hopes and dreams that are deep inside of there that maybe you've suppressed, or maybe people have said aren't worthy or aren't cool enough or aren't admirable? They aren't seen as things that we should be pursuing in our culture. Whatever it is that stopped you from listening to that inner voice, what if you got really clear with it? What if you weren't afraid to say no to the things that don't serve you and don't serve the world? And what if you weren't afraid to say yes and show up and change the mental models and change those habit loops in your mind and dare to compare yourself to the wonderful women that you want to be a little more like, and dare to say you were wrong. Dare to say that you didn't handle things well and you want to be a better human. How would your life change? How long would it take you to make one small change that already impacts your life for good, that already brings you so much joy that you feel like you're living a different life? That is my invitation for you today. I want you to find one small thing. Now, some of you are like me and you're like, oh, I'm totally a journaler. I'm going to schedule an hour in my schedule and I'm going to write all these things down and I'm going to make a master plan. And my word of advice and caution to you would be, if that stops you from doing it, don't wait until it's perfect to start making some progress. Maybe just have a simple prayer in your heart for an open mind to start seeing the things that are holding you back. Maybe you make a list of 10. Maybe that overwhelms you. Maybe you write down 1. Do you know what I've noticed? That oftentimes after school, I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I X, Y, or Z. I want to change that mental model. The most important first step is to find out where the gap is. What is the thing you're missing? What is the thing you want to feel more often? Then, oftentimes, just because you have that Velcro, the answer is going to come and you're going to notice it. Again, in a conversation around you or in a book that you happen to pick up because someone recommended it just at the right time. The right time came because you were intentional about asking the question about bettering your life. So I want you to take this invitation. If you take it up and if you have God, the universe, a person around you speak back to you for the next step of development for you, I'd love to hear about it. Come shoot me a message on Instagram. I think that would be so fun. But more so, do this for you. What I do want to share is I have a download for you. Page 1 is all the phrases that I use as a powerful woman. This is thinking of boundaries. This is saying no. This is how to turn people down politely. For me, it's been really helpful to have scripts that I use. Think again, ChatGPT has given me some of these, but some of these I've just practiced. How's a normal and natural way to hold boundaries for myself that's very clear and also really warm and articulate and loving? So that's page 1. On page 2, I'm giving you some tips and tricks on ChatGPT. Now, you don't need my second page. You could actually go to ChatGPT, tell it a little bit about who you are, and ask it to give you 50 ways it could help your life. And I would recommend you go do that. But I also have page 2, the ways that I use ChatGPT to maximize my effectiveness, productivity, to show up in the way that I want to as a woman. And it's been super helpful. It's literally been life-changing. And I hope it's the same for you. If this episode has hit you and if it's touched you, I would invite you and ask you to share it with someone who you believe it could change their life too. Maybe it's someone who you want to be a quote unquote running partner with you to go through this practice together and say, hey, listen to this episode and let's both pick something and keep each other accountable in our mental habits or how we think or in how we compare and how we have in the past. Sharing this episode will help more women find this podcast and also help the women who really need it find it most. It is such an honor to spend this time with you. I'm honored that you'd spend the 30 minutes with me today. And you should pat yourself on the back for it, not for listening to me, but for showing up intentionally in your life and for doing things that make your life better. Because when you're better, the people around you will be better, and the causes and the people and the things that you show up for will be blessed because of it. So show up for yourself, invest in yourself, love yourself more, and I'll see you next week.